Hey there everybody, welcome back to Starting Out Solitary. This is week 243. I'm Blind Rob, subbing in yet again, and this week we are talking about possession. Okay, so before I dive right into this topic and add my perspective to the mix, I just want to say I apologize that this video is being recorded and uploaded late. I knew in advance I was going to be subbing in for this week. Unfortunately, I came down pretty sick over the weekend with something of a fever, and while I was able to get over it pretty quickly, I was more or less healed, all the way back to normal by Tuesday evening. Unfortunately, we had issues with the washer, so I was not able to get clean quick and, clean myself up well enough to my usual level, if you will. So that's the reason why this video is late. Anyway, so on to the subject at hand. We're talking about possession. I honestly feel like that if you're going to talk about possession, especially from a pagan or polytheistic or witchy perspective, you first need to address the sort of the situation at hand, the elephant in the room, if you will. Because most commonly when people talk about or think about possession, they think about, demons and angels and possession from a Christian point of view. And being a polytheist and not being a Christian, obviously, I do not look at possession from a Christian point of view. I do believe in demons and angels, though my beliefs, my ideas, my opinions of either of those species of beings are far different, far more complicated than the view that is commonly seen in Christianity. They can possess people, either or. They can be channeled, which I personally believe that channeling and possession are two sides of the same coin, really. They both deal with a being, an entity, or a deity, or what have you, some sort of otherworldly person taking over a human being, overlaying their essence onto the essence of a person and taking control. With channeling, however, usually the person that's the human being that's involved in the situation willingly, intentionally, knowingly enters into the channeling and allows, purposefully allows, intentionally allows a being to temporarily take over them for whatever reason. It could be a magical working, it could be divination, it could be whatever. There are actually a lot of oracular trance working type rituals and a lot of different folk traditions in modern times that are reviving, reconstructing, recreating these such rituals in order to bring about certain experiences within certain groups, within certain traditions. You see this a lot in certain forms of heathenry. You see this in some animistic and shamanistic communities. But we're talking about possession, which is sort of kind of the opposite, but still, it's still very much the same thing as channeling. However, unlike channeling, which is very much a consenting sort of situation, sort of method of going about it, possession is very much non-consenting. It is where the being, the entity, or the deity even, forcefully takes over a person for however long it may be, to do what they will, usually for their own, their own reasons, for their own agenda, usually causing the person that they are possessing harm or the people around them harm. It might not always be the case, but a lot of the times it can be. And I personally believe that possession can happen. Just as easy it can be to channel, it can be easy to be possessed. It all depends on the person. I think part of it deals with the hardwiring of the person's brain, of their spirit. I think it depends on the being, how powerful the being is. what is going on in that person's life that they're wanting to possess. What is are there any sort of liminal times, liminal places? There's so many variables that can go into how, where, why a entity or being may possess a person. Usually, in my belief, a human being needs to have their guard down. They need to be without protections, without shielding, in one form or another for possession to happen. It's extremely hard, if not impossible, to possess a person if they have competent and apt shields, guards, wards, if whatever term or what you want to use for it, protections that keep them from being taken advantage of, for being manipulated in such a way. Because I do believe that a large part of how possession can happen and why it happens is, or the vehicle for it is through manipulation. The being, the entity, if they, granted that this really only happens if the person who, or the entity or being possessing the person, is sort of communicating with the person that they're about to possess beforehand. Usually some sort of manipulation tactic is involved. Hey, let me get close to you. I can help you out. I can make your life easier. Now, as far as myself, I have not had any personal possession experiences. I have channeled. Before. I've helped others channel. I've channeled myself. Although it is extremely hard for me to channel, to have a being, an entity, or deity channeled in me, simply because I don't have the hardwiring for it. There is a particular kind of hardwiring in your spirit, in your brain, if you will, that allows you to do it better, to make it easier, the process easier for you. And on the other side of the coin of that, because I do not have the hardwiring to be good at channeling into myself these external beings, it's extremely hard, if not impossible, for possession to take place either. The closest that I've ever come to like full-on channeling on the positive, intentional, consensual side of it is what is commonly referred to as shadowing or aspecting, where a being or an entity or a deity links up with you, syncs with you enough that you can share among each other's senses, information, what have you. But the thing about aspecting or shadowing is the human being is very much still in control of their senses, of their faculties, of their actions. Now, I have had an entity, a spirit in the past, a hostile entity, try to take over, try to possess. However, there were several reasons why that did not happen. Part of the reason was due to my spiritual, my mental hardwiring not being apt for that kind of thing. And also I had protections and shieldings going on at the time. But I also think that in some ways attachment can be very similar to possession. A spirit attaches themselves to a person. They might not necessarily possess the person outright, but they attach, link, connect themselves enough to that person, to that human, in order to follow them, to track them, to manipulate them in some ways. It may not necessarily be a direct control or manipulation, as say possession may be, but it may be a bit more passive. But I think in a lot of ways it can open the door, begin the journey for that being, for that entity, for that spirit to maybe further down the road take possession of that person. Yeah, my thoughts are kind of rambling. I honestly don't have a lot of thoughts and opinions about this subject. I know a little bit more about the channeling side of this topic than I do possession. Even if I don't have a lot of personal experience myself, I've been in situations where I've acted as a warder, as a protector, as a guardian for people who were participating in channeling rituals. Excuse me. And like I said, the closest that I've ever come to channeling is very much via aspecting or shadowing. Um, I have also helped people deal with possessions, though, a couple times, and use very much folk traditions and polytheistic equivalences to exorcism, though I would not call it as such, to deal with it. One of the times was very much with a hostile fairy that a person had foolishly invited into their life without taking the time and the effort and the energy to properly research the Ishi in general. And that particular fairy had attached themselves to them and was in the process of opening them up, manipulating them so that they could possess them. And me and another person who is also a fairy worker pretty much had to deal with that entity, that fairy. And I won't go into the details of that situation for a lot of reasons, but yeah, I think possession is possible, just as likely as channeling, but it depends on so many things. Like I said, I think the two go hand in hand. They're two sides of the same coin. So when you talk about one, you kind of got to talk about the other. You don't necessarily have to, but it kind of helps to have one to further explain, to describe, and reinforce the other topic, so to speak. Anyway, I apologize for the very rambling, what might come off as a very discombobulated sort of video. Though, while I am more or less back to full health, my brain is still a little mucky from it. So, yeah, that might be part of it. Anyway, take care. I will talk to you all the next time I'm able to sub in for one of these topics. Anyway, have a good one.